Welcome to Clubhouse with a review of the Bandai Master Grade 1100 RX-78 Gundam. Yes, this is the 1.0 Master Grade Gundam and the very first kit to ever bear the MG badge. I've wanted to look at this kit for a long time because it's historically a very important Gundam model, but also because it gets dismissed by a lot of YouTubers and reviewers and it really deserves a second look. So what's so important about this MG kit? Well, this is the second ever major redesign of the RX-78, right after the high-grade kit from the 90s. But this time, the Master Grade look was far more universally applied. After this radical new redesign, with all its new details like the angled corners on the shoulders and the panel designs on the shield, this would be the default look of the Gundam across all media. We saw this in the first G-Generation game, we saw this in Gundam the Battle Master, we saw it in the 200th BB Senshi RX-78, so it really did become the look for the RX-78. If you need an easy example, look no further than every single Gundam marker ever produced. See that head printed on the package? Guess which version of the RX-78 that might be? That's right, here it is! And it really was the blueprint for updating classic designs with modern levels of detail. So yes, I have a lot of respect for this kit, and as we'll soon see, it really does push the envelope for some new materials and textures to be used on a Gundam kit, much like what the PG Unleashed is trying to do today. This kit was released in July 1995 for a price of 2,700 yen, which really was quite a premium price for the time. The box art is a CG render that's been touched up a lot by hand, but the artwork isn't credited to anyone, unfortunately. CG like this was very cutting edge at the time, and that's no doubt what Bandai wanted to go with here. The box measures 20 by 31 by 8 centimeters, which was common for 1/100 kits for the time, but nowadays it's more like an HGUC box, so that gives you an idea of how much more complex kits have become. The short side of the box repeats everything from the front of the box without anything special in particular. The long side has studio shots with red titles and a white back, which is still used for MG boxes up to this day. There's so much stuff to show off, it overflows into the other side of the box before we get a bit of legal text. Inside the box, we see an extra folded card showing the fully completed kit before we get to all the good stuff underneath. This folded card was standard for MG kits for quite a while, and I'm not entirely sure when they stopped doing it, but I've heard many older fans say that they do miss this little detail. Underneath that, we get the Gundam spread across 10 runners with one of them for the polycaps, and yeah, the MG line has moved away from polycaps, but that shift would take some years to happen. We get this beautiful pre-printed shoulder armor piece here with the UNT Spacey text and the Pegasus emblem on the other side. This really drives home the premium status of this kit, and Bandai really pulled out all the stops to show you what can be done for a retail model kit. Sadly, the mold has aged quite a bit and you're gonna see a lot of shrinkage on the surface of a lot of these pieces. But that's no problem if you're painting it, because we get this set of rub-on transfer decals which really took many people by surprise. You get the text and the Pegasus emblem to reapply onto the shoulders if you're gonna paint it. This really wasn't common practice for Bandai at the time in 1995, and they wanted to please both straight builders and modelers, and they wanted everyone to be taken care of. Now, there are also people who bellyache about rub transfer decals and how fragile they are, and how there's this whole big argument over water slide decals being better, and that's really not what we're looking at today. Bandai wanted this kit to be easy to build, even for younger fans, and I think these decals are a very innovative choice. And we also get a set of clear stickers, like this one here for the eyes, but I don't think I'm going to go through all of these other markings here, and none of them are for color correcting. Then next we get this odd sheet of plastic stickers, and these are not for color corrections, but they are instead to add to the geometry of the surface. Now, I'm not entirely sure why this was their approach that they took at the time, but I can tell you that they didn't do this for too many MG kits before giving up on it, so this is something of an experiment that didn't pan out in the end. Next, we get yet another sheet of stickers with these silver ones with raised grille details on it. Bandai really thought hard about textures on this kit, and they tried to replicate the different surfaces and details with the help of different materials. And I've seen far too few YouTubers really give this kit credit and appreciate all this. I mean, yes, it's old and we'll get to that, but Bandai really tried to be innovative here in 1995. And still we're not done with the oddities inside the box. Here we have two grill meshes and they go right underneath the chest vents. You're never ever gonna see them or notice them under the vents, and it's not like you're gonna pull off the vents randomly from time to time, but this is a budding philosophy in the MG line that inner details matter too, and that there should be an air of real-world engineering to a Gundam's design. I won't say anyone bought this kit for the grills, but I'm sure a good number of people thought it was really cool, even though if it's not at all practical. And for the instructions, we get the genesis of this MG booklet layout. Inside we get a detailed in-universe writing on the RX-78 and this open hatch look here, which is a bit of a lie. The next page gives us this charming 1995 CG of the RX-78, and now you can see why the box art had to be touched up by someone's hand. And we aren't done yet, with the next page giving us mechanical drawings of different parts of the RX-78. The center page gives us a color print with studio shots and some recreations of famous scenes, and these all work in conjunction with the coloring guide. Each of the following pages gives us in-universe details that correspond to the part that you're building, which is very cool and makes each part feel very important. Of course, we don't get that anymore nowadays, otherwise it's gonna get quite naggy once that novelty wore off, but for the inaugural MG kit, this was very appropriate. The very back of the booklet has a back shot that matches the folded card we saw earlier, and this too is a lost tradition in the MG line nowadays. So just a bit over 90 minutes later, we have the RX-78 here, and yes, that's already quite a slow build with generous time used for cleaning up the parts. It's really not a complex kit compared to what you'd expect today from a master grade, and many reviewers have criticized that, dismissing this as a really big high grade, but I think that's being a little bit overdramatic. You see, what you're looking at here isn't a big high grade. What this is the pinnacle of the 90s era Gundam model design. Really, I mean that. If we only have access to more recent kits, we have no idea that the pre-MG and pre-HGUC kit had a very particular philosophy to the design and their construction. You get most of the pieces as two halves that are sandwiched together with fittings for a polycap hinge. And then you get a very conservative transitional joint like this one on the knee to connect the thigh and the lower leg. And this split on the bicep here at the middle is something you'll see a lot on older 1/100 kits. And very revealing of its era is the lower leg terminating in a ball socket and the ball being on the feet, which is one big static part. Heck, even the articulated hand is a type that's very common to the 90s kit with a separate trigger finger and then the three other fingers clustered together. To someone who has built models for many years, this will be instantly recognizable as the style from the time. There wasn't yet the widespread concept of full inner frames and sliding armor parts or transforming hinges that we have nowadays. This kit here is focused on the exterior styling of the kit, with its innovations being the opening panels and the added details. And okay, I've gone on my tangent for long enough. The short of it is that this is the ultimate evolution of 90s Gundam models, and it's very interesting if you want to understand the development of Gundam kits. And next, let's have a look at the blade antenna up here, which is strangely a soft piece. It's very durable, but it's another one of those things that Bandai decided not to continue with future MG kits. But fear not, builders, we actually get another blade antenna here molded in hard polystyrene. The red crest in the middle isn't red, but Bandai probably thinks that if you're painting this, then this probably isn't gonna matter much to you. And then let's look at those cool opening panels like the ones here on the side of the arms, and then the ones here on the back of the legs. The details inside are all done in gray, though they do look like the facade that they are with all the white plastic around them. The scalp can be opened up too by pulling it off to reveal the inner mechanics of the head, and then you just plug the scalp back into a different hole and have it in the upright position. This way, we have the RX-78 in its fully open maintenance mode. Yeah, it's a little underwhelming compared to the full inner frames that we get nowadays, and it doesn't even cover all the parts shown in the illustration in the instructions, so it's a bit of an incomplete gimmick. cool as it is for the time. Next, let's look at these tiny little handles that you get, and then these tiny little hook mounts, and these equally tiny little vent details. All of these require glue, and all of them are here for you to freely use wherever you see fit on the kit. The kit really straddles the line between being a complete out-of-the-box retail kit and also being something that's special that builders would love. These parts are a nice thought and they're useful for ultra detailed builds, but they also didn't stick around beyond the first RX-78 and the Zaku 2 kits. The small details continue with a 1/100 standing pilot, which could be Amuro or not depending on your liking. We also have a sitting figure too that goes into the cockpit, but I didn't put mine inside. We still get these now with MG kits, and they were around since the very beginning. Now let's look at the weapons, starting with the beam rifle. The scope here actually has a yellow piece which I left out because once you put it in, you can't get it out again. The front handle can be rotated as the scope can be adjusted. The side of the rifle has a small polycap hook that can flip out, and with this, you can hang the rifle on the side skirt, which may not be something a lot of people use, but it is a functional detail that was very impressive for the time on this kit. Otherwise, it's a new, bulky take on the classic rifle design, and it hides many of the stranger angular lines that it originally had, making it look and feel like a proper and dangerous weapon for the very first time. Then we get to the beam sabers, which you can pull off the backpack, and they're one of the earliest examples of these solid color handles with a hole that accepts a clear, separate beam part. The ones included here are a bit on the short side if you place it next to the modern beam effect part, and sadly, the newer ones here have a longer peg, so they don't just work with the handles unless you trim the peg down a little bit. Still, the beam saber looks long enough, and you're not really gonna find it painfully short or anything. And of course we have the shield, which at the time it was still quite rare to get a Gundam shield that's fully colored in plastic. The eye hole here has a clear plastic piece too, which is nice extra touch. The backside here has mechanical details, but is otherwise in all white, which doesn't look too good with modern eyes. The handle here is a soft plastic piece which you can pull off and then reinstall into any one of these other pegs to adjust the height. It's really not the sturdiest shield ever, and it's a little bit awkward to hold, but it does stay up fairly well and it won't flop around on you. We've gotten better versions of the shield since 1995, but this one does its job well enough. You can also stow the shield away by plugging this peg onto the backpack here, and it's all quite straightforward. And the last weapon we get is the Bazooka, which is made of two really large pieces sandwiched together, though the front of the barrel is one continuous piece. The handle here at the back is articulated for a bit of extra detail, but this really is quite a simple weapon despite its size. The articulated hands grip it just fine, and this RX-78 was one of the earliest kits to be able to properly hold that bazooka because of the awkward arm bend that's needed that older kits just couldn't manage. On the back skirt here is a panel that opens up, and inside is a gray piece that you can swing into an upright position, and this gives us a mount for the bazooka which fits in here, and it allows it to be stowed on the back as we saw a few times in the animation. This is a new philosophy of hiding functional details underneath opening panels, which we're going to see quite often in MG kits moving forward. Oh, but this kit isn't done impressing us yet in 1995. It has a fully functional core block system, and you can pull off the upper torso like this to reveal the cockpit block inside. You can pull out the block and that'll give us a full view of the pilot's seat facing forward. Now this gray block here is used for the inner details and when you want to open a cockpit door at the front for display. But we do get the entire core fighter which can transform into its core block form. But before we look at that, let's look at the lower torso with this gray tray piece that accepts the core block and it can rotate from side to side, giving us a little bit of waist movement. It looks really flimsy, but it works surprisingly good. This MG may have a lot of stuff in it, but it really isn't that fragile. So let's turn the core block into the core fighter. First, we need to swing out the nose of the fighter. Then we extend the front portion like this. Then the two wings fold out, revealing the beautiful white color underneath. The stabilizer wing at the back needs to be put on as a separate piece, so it's not a fully self-contained transformation, unfortunately. And that gives us the core fighter with all its beautiful colors. The aging mold has caused some of the details to not be as sharp, but you can still feel how much engineering was put into making this functionally accurate and look good at the same time. The core fighter does have landing wheels that you can plug into this spot here at the front, and then the other two at the back here. I actually like these a little bit more than modern MG core fighters, which have a strange clear rack with wheels on them, and those just don't look right without painting. The ones here you can use straight out of the box without hassle, and that's just great. And of course, this core fighter can be placed inside the RX-78 if you prefer, and outwardly you won't really notice any difference because it's all covered up when it's inside. For hands, we have these main articulated ones, with the index finger that swivels separately from the other 3 fingers below, and then the thumb moves by itself on a ball joint. Then we have a set of static closed fists with no holes in them. Then there's a pair of open palms, though they're in a resting pose and not the most exciting thing for poses. Okay, that was a lot of stuff, so how is the articulation? Starting from the top, the head, it can't look up at all because of the collar blocking things. It can look down a little bit though. It turns really far to the side, but it gets caught a lot on that collar once again. The shoulder joint is a static peg, a staple of 90s kits, so there's no upwards or sideways swing at all. The arms swing outwards this much, and sadly not even 90 degrees. They do swing around a full circle without any problems. The biceps allow full rotation of the forearms. And the elbow joint manages 90 degrees and no more. The hands can be adjusted on their ball joint, and they rotate around a full circle, of course. We've seen the waist joint a little bit already and knows that it turns side to side just a little bit, limited quite a lot by the skirt armor. The front skirt can flip up quite far, and the side skirts can lift up a little bit like this. The legs can be adjusted on their ball joint, and the legs kick upwards 90 degrees, and they go back until they hit the back of the skirt. The knees manage a 90-degree bend, and the ankle armor moves separately like this. And then the feet swing up this much, and then they go back this much. And they swing side to side this much. So you may have noticed a lot of 90-degree bends there, and that's a clear sign that this kit isn't all that great on the articulation department. Now, I may recognize this kit to be historically important, but it really didn't innovate nearly as much in the range of movements yet. This is the area where it'll really take you right back into 1995. And it wasn't unusual for the time, but I really can't say much to endorse this kit nowadays to a modern fan unless this is for academic exploration. With all that said, here's a Hobby Clubhouse 3-point verdict on the Bandai Master Grade 1100 RX-78-2 Gundam from 1995. Number 1, it's historically and educationally interesting. There is a reason why the Gundam 3.0 was such a big deal. Bandai called it a representation of the best of their technology in 2013, and this kit right here was the same thing back in 1995. It was a proud moment for Bandai, and this kit features many things never seen before in a Gundam model prior to it. It started the path of super premium lines that fans grew to love, where no costs are spared to make the craziest, most indulgent, and most unnecessarily detailed kits that money can buy, and we're still getting that today with the stupidly named MG Extreme and PG Unleashed. Bandai had to start somewhere, and they started here with the very first Master Grade. Number 2, it really needs work out of the box. In 1995, kits didn't hide their seam lines from you, and that was your job. And as color accurate as this is, there are still egregious parts like the insides of the ankles here which are really obviously lacking color. 26 years later, the aging mold introduces new problems like surface imperfections and a lot of shrinkage and a lot of flash, and the soft plastic pieces are just a mess. So this kit needs a lot of your love to look its best, and maybe that's just what you're looking for. And number 3, it's not a good choice for most buyers. As much as I trumpet the importance of this kit, I have to be honest and say that this really shouldn't be the choice for most buyers. As a kit to enjoy and play with or display, there is just no good reason to get this over the lovely 2.0 or the technologically advanced 3.0. This was a mind-blowing kit in 1995, but this really isn't 1995, and fans' expectations have grown alongside Bandai's skills in manufacturing, and this kit isn't some hipster, non-mainstream hidden gem. You'll see it for all the flaws it has, so make sure you have the proper reasons for buying this before you make the leap. So that's the review for the first MG ever released. I hope I've given it a different perspective that it deserves beyond the many criticisms it receives online, and I hope you've learned a thing or two about it along the way. Thank you so much for watching. Come check us out on social media with updates on upcoming videos and sneak peeks at future projects. Links are in the description below. Or hang out here some more on these other videos. But before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified of future videos from Hobby Clubhouse, and I'll see you next time.